Good afternoon, basketball officials. I have lost track, I will be honest, on what number of vlog posts this is, but I I do know that I promised to cover part two of pre-gaming this week after we had kind of an intermission last week to host Brent Rice, which we are very thankful for. I know Brent had mentioned that he didn't know we were doing these videos until I asked him to come on, but he said he caught himself up on the videos since we started putting these up. So, Brent, if you're watching again, thank you for the time that you took to spend with our association last week. We're very fortunate that the MHSAA takes such a uh, such a keen interest in the TCAOA. I know they hold us in very high regard, and we thank them for all of their time and the effort that they give to us. So, again, thank you to Brent for joining us last week. You'll remember 2 weeks ago, I offered part one of how to effectively pregame. This week, I'd like to offer part two of how to effectively pregame. Just one quick note. Next week will probably, I'm almost certain will be the last vlog post that I make for the season, with girls regular season ending this week and boys regular season ending next week. We'll probably put one more of these videos out and maybe make it a little bit more universal. Obviously, talking about basketball will be the primary, but just some different philosophical and theoretical things to keep in mind as officiating continues, whether it be in the spring for our baseball and softball and soccer officials, heading into the fall with football and volleyball, and then again getting ready for basketball next year. So part two of pre-gaming, I'd like to start with a discussion amongst your crew before the game about court coverages on press. Okay, so let's start with three-person. The center official should be staying back to help on full court press. And a lot of times people ask me, what's your key as the center official to where you should be located on the court? I'm always mirroring where the third defender is on the court. Okay. But as the center official, the other thing that I'm keeping in mind, or that I'm keeping an eye on, is I'm always making sure that in my peripheral vision, even if the third defender is in the front court, if there's two offensive players and two defensive players in the backcourt, I'm keeping my eye on that, because I want to make sure that the trail official is able to officiate that effectively. The other thing is I want to make sure that if the ball starts getting close to the midline, that there's coverage on the midline if the trail is buried deep in the backcourt. Because if there's a long pass from the backcourt and that pass is right on the midline and the trail is 40 feet away from the midline, someone has to be responsible for that. And in three-person, it's the center. Now, go down to my second bullet point where I talk about the lead official. The lead official many times will have, excuse me, will have responsibility for over and back violations on the midline. Now, as the trail official in three-person, when there's backcourt pressure, I'm always going to be one step behind the player, I should say the player deepest in the front court. So I'm going to be one step behind that person, but I'm going to be ready to move. If everyone shoots towards the ball in the backcourt, I'm going with them. Now, in two-person, as a trail official, a lot of times you want to start at the midline and then move accordingly. So if I'm working in two-person and I'm the lead official and I am standing on the midline, there can be a couple of players behind me. I'm going to open my shoulders so that my shoulders are parallel to the sideline that I'm working on, so that I can not only see the players that are in the front court, but I can also see what's happening in the backcourt, while also understanding how players got to the position on the midline that they did. There's been a couple games this year where I've seen a player jump from the front court, catch a pass in the air that was coming from the backcourt, and land in the backcourt with no calls. Okay. Keep in mind that the player's last position on the court before they jump is their court location. So someone who jumps from the front court, catches the ball in midair and lands in the backcourt, had front court status. So that's an over and back violation. And again, if the trail official is knee deep in on ball coverage 40 feet from the midline, they are going to need help. That help comes from the center official in 3-person and from the trail official in 2-person. So again, discuss that with your crew before you go out on the court. Also discuss the importance of calling off-ball fouls. It requires officials without on-ball coverage to have awareness of what is going on in their primary coverage area. And here's why I say that. A lot of times, if a trail or center official has on-ball coverage, they will have that matchup. But what's going to happen many times, so many offenses now are predicated on ball screens. So if I, as the trail official, have an offensive, defensive, on-ball matchup right in front of me, and a screen is being set on that defender, there's many times where I'm not going to know whether that screen was set legally or not. I'm going to have to rely on either the center or the lead official to help me out on that, because my focus is I have such a laser focus on that on-ball matchup and that offensive player and that defensive player that a lot of times my eyes or my peripherals cannot wander enough to know whether that screen that I just saw being set was legal or not. So what's going to happen is those screens many times are going to, or I'm sorry, the player who's going to screen many times is going to originate from someone else's primary coverage area. So if you as the center do not have an on-ball matchup, you need to know what's going on in your primary coverage area. And if you see a player moving towards the ball, well, you can pretty much guess one of two things is going to happen. If it's an offensive player, they're probably going to set a screen, or they're going to, they feel like their teammate needs help. Number two, if it's a defensive player and they're shooting to the ball, that means that they're probably going to trap. Okay. So again, helping out that other official is going to be important, especially when it comes to off-ball screens. Okay. So like I said, understand what's going on in your PCA, but also know if something originates from your PCA and it carries over into someone else's PCA, help them out, especially if they have on-ball coverage. At the same time, though, we need to trust that our partners can handle what is going on when they have the ball. So as the center official, I am not going to make a call that the trail official has eyes on. Okay, the trail official has an on-ball matchup. You know what? I, as the center official, am going to help them out with whatever else is going on in their primary coverage area, or I'm going to pay attention to what's going on in my primary coverage area. Whatever the case may be, I trust my partner to be able to understand violations and fouls that are occurring right in front of them when they have on-ball coverage. Always trust your partners, but discuss the importance of off-ball fouling in your pregame and in how each official is going to play a role in that. Now, you're probably looking at these next two main bullet points here, rotations 2-person and rotations 3-person, and you look at the bullet points that are underneath them, and you're saying to yourself, Tom, why didn't you just put it under one bullet point? Here's the reason why. These 2 points, to me, are the 2 points that are probably number one pet peeves of each one of these. It's like 1 and 1A pet peeve of mine. Number two, it's so important, and I see it being done wrong many, many times. Number one, the calling official should always go opposite table. And I know officials are watching this saying, well, I want to stay by the coach and give them an explanation. And coaches don't like when the calling official goes opposite table either. But here's the thing, even the most innocuous conversation, the conversation that starts off very calm and very relaxed between a calling official and a coach can get out of hand very quickly, especially if the coach hears something that they don't like to hear. So to eradicate that possibility from happening altogether, that's why the calling official should always go opposite table. The only instance where the calling official would, in my opinion, it might be a good idea for the calling official to stay table side is if you have a technical foul on a player for either saying something or baiting or taunting or whatever the case may be. Sometimes that takes an explanation directly to the coach. But the reality is 99 times out of 100, the calling official should always go opposite table to get themselves out of that conflicting situation. Now, the second point here, put the ball in play where it should be put in play. If the ball goes out of bounds on the opposite sideline, and I'm the trail official, I am not going to pull it all the way across to my sideline just so that I don't have to run across the court and force a rotation. Okay, put the ball in play where it should be in play. This will, to me, this will make coaches and administrators have the sense that you're taking the game seriously. Okay, you're not taking shortcuts, you're not being lazy, you're putting the ball in play where it should be put into play. Despite what it takes as far as officials rotating on the court, yes, it's a couple extra steps. I apologize for making you take those extra steps, but please put the ball in play where it should be put into play. Okay. A little bit more about three-person rotations, because in three-person, you're adding in a third official and you're actually moving as the lead official across the paint. So the lead will initiate 90% of the rotations. The center, every once in a while, will initiate a rotation. And that's going to happen when the ball is in their primary coverage area. Typically, it's going to be when the ball is in their primary coverage area towards the midline. Okay, so let's put ourselves into a situation where the ball just happens to cross the midline into the front court and it's in the center's primary coverage area. Now, sometimes the center is going to be able to stay right where they are and officiate that play more than adequately. And it's because the play is right in front of them. But there's also going to be times where the center official needs to take 2 or 3 steps towards the midline. And what that should do is it should trigger the lead to rotate over. If I'm the lead and I see my center taking 2 or 3 steps towards the midline, that tells me that they need a better angle on that on-ball coverage, and giving them a better angle or allowing them to have a better angle. My role in that is to rotate over as the lead official. So again, don't be so locked in as the lead official to not understand or see when the center official is initiating that rotation. It doesn't happen frequently, but when it does, again, the lead official needs to be aware. Now, if you have a competitive matchup and a rotation is initiated, do not leave the matchup until the situation affords you the opportunity to complete the rotation. Oh, what I'm talking about here is if I'm the center official and I have on-ball coverage and that play is right in front of me, and the lead, seeing that the play is, right in front of me as the center official, and the players are starting to migrate towards the ball, making my side of the court the strong side now, the lead is going to initiate that rotation, which is fine, but I'm not leaving the angle that I have on that on-ball matchup. Even though the lead's rotated over, and I realize we have 2 center officials, the most important element on that court is the on-ball matchup. So I, as the center official, am not going to leave that on-ball matchup. I'm not going to rotate out of there into a worse angle. There will be time for you to rotate to your new trail position, but don't leave a good spot on the court where you can officiate plays adequately just because a rotation is initiated. So talk about rotations in your pregame. Talk about, as the center official, here's what I'm going to do. As the lead official, here's what I'm going to do. As the trail official, here's what I'm going to do. Many times in my pregame, I'm going to go over what triggers me to make a rotation as a lead official. I don't rotate probably as much as I should. There's two things that trigger my rotations without hesitation. Number one, the ball is on the far sideline, and there are enough players that have migrated over to that side of the court to now make it the strong side of the court. That is going to initiate a rotation for me. Number two, the second thing is if the ball is on the far sideline or across the paint from me as the lead official, and it comes below the free throw line, I'm making a rotation unless there is an imminent shot. Okay. We've all been in those situations where we kind of rotate last minute, without realizing that a shot was imminent. That's going to happen. But a lot of times, again, I'm rotating over anytime the center's side of the court becomes the strong side. We need two officials on that side of the court now. If the ball comes below free throw line extended towards the end line, I'm also going to initiate a rotation in that instance. When you pregame, talk about the importance of patient whistles. Discuss how important it is for the official with primary coverage on the play to give them the ability to make the call. And he just realized I worded this incorrectly, so I apologize. It should say, give the official with primary coverage on the play the ability to make the call. If you need to go outside of your primary, be 100% sure and always take at least 2 to 3 steps towards the play. Now, I can't remember the exact percentage that Brian Morley gave to us in the preseason meeting at Freeland High School. For some reason, 86% stands out in my head, but I don't know if that is 100% accurate. But from what I remember, Brian was saying that 86% of the calls you make outside of your primary coverage area are incorrect. Okay. Now, it might be a little high, but I can guarantee you it's over 50%, it's over 60%, and I'm almost positive it's over 70%. Sometimes I've heard different statistics, I've heard different percentages, but the fact of the matter is we get more wrong than we do right when we go outside of our primary coverage area. Okay. Now, if you do need to go outside of your primary, we call these crew savers, where something happens and you just happen to see a foul that the lead probably got screened out on, and the trail official didn't have eyes on it because it wasn't in their primary coverage area or something like that. And if you know with 100% confidence that there was a foul or there was a violation, by all means, go and get it. But help sell the call a little bit by taking 2 or 3 steps towards the location where the foul or the violation occurred. That will help. That will show that you are making that call with all of the confidence in the world. It looks a lot better to make a call from 20 feet away, walking towards the location where it happened, than making a call from 40 feet away that happened right in front of one of your partners. Okay. Having a patient whistle is important. If you find yourself having double whistles with your partners, especially across multiple games, examine why this is happening. If I'm in a game and we have 2 or 3 double whistles, I'm not going to be too concerned about it. But when we start talking about 5, 6, 7 double whistles, that's probably going to be a part of the post game where we talk about, why did we have so many double whistles? And what I don't want you to do is call out or identify another official, because the reality is it takes 2 people to have a double whistle. So don't call out another official, But what I would recommend is when you have that kind of that opportunity on the drive home to silently post game yourself, ask yourself, was I a common denominator in these double fouls tonight? Or this has happened now for 6 or 7 consecutive games. Chances are, because it's happened in 6 or 7 consecutive of my games, that I'm a responsible party for this. I need to be more patient. And again, I know patient whistles are one of the most difficult things to do correctly and do adequately in officiating. It comes with experience. There's really nothing else that you can rely on besides experience to help you get through a double whistle situation. Okay. Because you are processing so many things in such a short amount of time that one of the last things you're thinking about is, well, I saw some contact, but it wasn't in my primary coverage area. I'm not really sure if the lead was screened out or not. I'm not sure if the lead didn't make the call because the player was spinning to the basket and they wanted to give them the opportunity to make the layup or not make the layup. You know, how hard is it to problem solve when you've got action going on at 100 miles an hour? You've got fans and coaches screaming in your ear. You've got players that are trying to jockey for position and elbow one another or take cheap shots or whatever the case may be. I understand, like, it's not easy at all to have a patient whistle, but it's something that we can work on. And if you ever find yourself running out of things to work on, which would be pretty difficult. You know, I'm in my 20th year and I've never had a time where there isn't something that I'm working on. But patient whistles is always one of the things that I'm trying to get better at. Always. I've gotten better, but I'm not where I need to be. And there are many times where I kind of beat myself up after a game because, you know, we had maybe 3 or 4 double whistles as a crew, and I was on 3 or 4 of those double whistles. So again, I know I'm talking about the hardest part of officiating here, but it's important to pregame it because you want to be on the same page with your partners as far as who's going to take responsibility when you do have a double whistle. And I'm not talking about responsibility for whose fault it was. I'm talking about responsibility of taking the play to the table. Okay. So that needs to be covered in your pregame as well. Communication. I'm talking about communication with coaches here. Remind the crew that you're not going to address statements. You're only going to answer questions from coaches, and that silence is never a bad thing. Now, if a coach calmly approaches me with a statement and it's a statement that only they or I can hear, and I feel like we can have a constructive conversation in 10 seconds or less, yeah, I might engage in conversation with their statement. Okay. But even questions that come from coaches, if they are in a state of hysteria, arms waving, jumping jacks, pulling their hair out, yelling and screaming, I'm not even going to answer questions from them at that point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let them take a couple breaths, maybe give them 7 or 8 seconds to level out a little bit, and then I will answer their questions. As long as their question, though, is provided to me in a respectful way. Okay. And again, this is something that's going to come with time and with experience. Right. But I am never going to give my seal of approval on bad behavior by answering a question when a coach is in a state of hysteria. And I'm certainly not going to address statements at that particular point. Okay. Understand that when you're having a conversation with a coach, the opposing coach is counting every second you are spending in that conversation. And I'm sure there are some coaches that are watching this and saying to themselves, I'm not that petty. Maybe you're not, but as officials, we have to treat the situation like they are being petty. So you want to keep your conversations short and concise to prevent claims of unequal treatment. And all I'm trying to do here is save officials from having uncomfortable conversations where they have to explain themselves to an opposing coach who just watched you spend 45 seconds with another coach who maybe didn't even ask a question. Maybe they were only making a statement and it was a loud statement. And that coach is observing you giving 45 seconds to this coach who is in that state of hysteria that I was talking about. That opposing coach's expectation now is that you are going to give them the same opportunity to be in that state of hysteria and answer their question or address their statement. Okay. Short and concise, 7 to 8 seconds, and then you're gone. You're out of there. Okay. That will keep the unequal treatment claims out of your officiating. Pre-game, what you're going to do with dead ball officiating and how important it is to watch what happens during a dead ball. And it's keeping your eyes focused on the court at all times. You know, many times, and I'm just as guilty as the next person. Ball goes out of bounds, it starts to roll away. I'm the lead official. I go and chase it. I need to get better at that because I need to keep my eyes on the court at all times, making sure that nothing is going on. Because, to my second bullet point here, behavior worthy of a technical foul usually starts during a dead ball. Players get close. Offensive and defensive player are in close proximity. They start jawing at one another. The ball gets inbounded. There's a hard foul. Now we might have a fight. Whereas if I have eyes on that, I'm going to step in between them before we even put the ball in play and start having a conversation about how we're not going to allow that type of behavior to continue. So that's why it's important to always continue to officiate when there's a dead ball. We always talk about the importance of preventative officiating. This is one area where you can really take a step forward with preventative officiating. Okay. There have been a number of times where, even in my own situation, where I don't see the initial push, shove, elbow, but I see the retaliation. And I give the technical foul on the retaliation. And I can see by everyone's reactions that I simply just got a technical foul on the retaliation because I wasn't paying close enough attention to what started that whole conflict from happening. That's why dead ball officiating is synonymous with preventative officiating. Keeping your eyes on the court, keeping your awareness and your focus up at all times. That is why it's so important. Then finally, make sure that you're pre-gaming what you're going to do procedurally with technical fouls. Okay. Let's say we have a T on a coach or a player, whatever the case may be. As a non-calling official, I am going to try, I'm not going to try, as a non-calling official, I'm going to get to that calling official before they report to the table, because I want to give that calling official a few seconds to just breathe, to, technical foul. I've never been in a technical foul situation that didn't produce an abundance of adrenaline in that moment. So I want to give that calling official an opportunity to tell me exactly what happened, what we're going to do for order of administration, and whether the calling official wants to talk to a coach if it was a player technical, or whether they want to go opposite table. And again, if it's a technical on a coach, I'm always advocating the calling official to go opposite table. But the important thing here, before we get to that point, is the calling official and a non-calling official should be getting together before the calling official reports to the table, so that everyone is on the same page. If you're in a 3-person crew, the third official needs to be aware of what is going on every inch of that court. All right. If it was a player technical foul, you're watching for retaliation. If it was a coach technical foul, you're making sure that the coach doesn't do something even worse that now warrants a second technical foul and an ejection. Okay, so in a two-person crew, a lot of times you're not going to have that luxury. You're going to need to talk while keeping your eyes on the court. At least in three-person officiating, you have that extra set of eyes that allows the calling and the non-calling official to have a more private conversation where they can focus specifically on what just happened. But in your pregame, you need to cover how this procedure is going to work so that if the worst of the worst happens during the game, you can stay on top of it and you have focus and you know inherently how to get through that situation. So that was part 2 of pre-gaming. Hopefully everyone got some good information out of it. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out with an email. And just a reminder, next week, more than likely, will be our last vlog post. So hope everyone's staying safe, hope everyone's staying healthy, and those officials who are starting to get postseason assignments, hope that your assignments are good and that you're working with good partners. Until next week, we'll see you.